The Rothschild family. When we hear this name, certain things come to mind for all of us. Global finance, a hidden power, perhaps the family that made the greatest trade in history in a single night. In a moment, we'll talk about both the real story and the legend of this family. And, let me say, both are extremely interesting. First, let's briefly talk about the Rothschilds, the mid-1700s, Frankfurt. A man named Mayor Amschel Rothschild works in the Jewish ghetto, on a narrow street, in a shop with a red shield hanging above it. Mayor Amschel Rothschild. His surname even comes from this. Rothschild means red shield in German. Mayor Amschel is not an ordinary money changer. He is patient and possesses an extraordinarily strategic mind. Over time, he builds connections with Europe's most powerful aristocrats, especially with the Prince of Hesse-Kassel. And these people see the unusual potential in him, showing that there is far more to him than shopkeeping. Mayor Amschel Rothschild sends his 5 sons to 5 different European cities and establishes a vast banking and communications network: Frankfurt, London, Paris, Vienna, Naples. And these 5 cities are in constant contact with one another. A private courier network, coded letters. In the early 1800s, when WhatsApp didn't exist, they had access to real-time information. In that era, this meant enormous power and privilege. This structure is precisely what carried them to the pinnacle of European finance. Now let's come to that moment in history. June 1815. Napoleon Bonaparte had escaped from the island of Elba and had begun making Europe tremble once again. England and the other great powers of Europe were in a state of panic. A great battle was to be fought at Waterloo, and its outcome would shift the balance not only politically, but economically as well. The London Stock Exchange essentially froze. If Napoleon won, British bonds would fall, and the pound would hit rock bottom. If Wellington won, the opposite. There was such enormous uncertainty that no one dared to make bold moves. It was precisely at this point that Nathan's financial genius came into play. Nathan was at the London Bank. The family's courier network was, at the time, truly one of the fastest information systems in Europe. It is said they were even faster than government dispatches. June 18, 1815. The Battle of Waterloo begins. Wellington consigns Napoleon to history, and this is where the story splits in two. According to legend, this is what happened. Nathan learns the news hours, even a full day, before his rivals. The news reaches London via his couriers, but Nathan doesn't share it with anyone. Instead, as soon as the exchange opens that morning, he begins offloading his bonds. But he doesn't put them all up for sale at once. He sells slowly in a controlled manner. But this move is, of course, noticed on the exchange floor. The other investors around him think, if Rothschild is selling, he must know something. Napoleon must have won. Panic and chaos erupt. Everyone starts selling. Bonds hit rock bottom. At that moment, through his agents, Nathan essentially tears through the market and buys everything up at floor prices. A few hours later, the news arrives. Wellington won. Bonds shoot up. Nathan has made an astronomical fortune in the space of a few hours. According to some accounts, his gains that day were equivalent to England's national debt. Some sources even say Nathan bought England that day. A fine story, isn't it? Cinematic, almost perfectly crafted. But now let's take a step back and get closer to the truth. This story has serious problems in the historical record. The first and most significant issue. The oldest known version of this account appears in a French pamphlet published in 1846, a full 31 years after the event. And this pamphlet was written in an openly hostile tone toward the Rothschilds. From a standpoint of source reliability, this raises a major question mark. The second problem, historians have repeatedly researched the Rothschild archives. Documents exist regarding Nathan's transactions from that period, but no evidence of a manipulation as calculated and deliberate as described was found. The third problem is more fundamental. Nathan was already an enormously powerful banker before Waterloo. He was also financing Wellington's army. Even before the battle, he was among Europe's foremost financiers. So the notion that he became rich in a single day is in itself a distortion, because he was already rich. What most likely happened? Nathan did learn the news somewhat earlier. Yes. He probably made some clever transactions. Yes. But the part about single-handedly manipulating the exchange and robbing all of England is, in all likelihood, a legend that was later altered, exaggerated, and perhaps deliberately planted. So how did this story take such a firm hold? Because people need stories like this. A powerful family, a mysterious and deep network, perfect timing, a single move. And overnight, the world changes. This narrative is both impressive and satisfying. It compresses complex history into a single scene, but real history is usually not this clear-cut. The Rothschild family were genuinely extraordinarily knowledgeable, strategic, and powerful people, but their power came not from one legendary event, but from knowledge accumulated over decades, from the relationships they cultivated, and from the right decisions they made. And the lesson that emerges from this is actually more valuable than the legend itself. Nathan Rothschild did not become rich overnight. He worked hard to build a system that could access information before anyone else. That courier network he built with his brothers was a structure assembled through decades of patience. Waterloo was simply the most sensational demonstration of that system working as intended. The real advantage is receiving information before everyone else, and the system that made this possible was not a momentary event, but the fruit of long-term work. It's wonderful to hear the legend, but the truth behind it is far more instructive. If you found answers to your questions, wonderful. Keep listening to Wallet Historian, and I'll keep searching for answers.